because we've now run out of time. So,
yep, that's fine.
All right, we'll give the call to the Honourable Deputy Leader of Opposition Business.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise this evening to make my contribution on the motion forwarded by Member for Clark, Ms Bennett, and thank her for the approach to circulating and working on this motion in advance, and pleased to have this before us this afternoon. I'm also in advance of speaking to the actual motion would like to acknowledge a number of people since I've been in this shadow portfolio that has taken the time to talk to me about this report, preparations in the report being tabled, but also in conversations since then. Acknowledge the Tas Conservation Trust here, conversations that I've had with the Tas Climate Collective, with Climate Tasmania and with other interested advocates as individuals and organisations across Tasmania. There's no doubt that these matters carry deep importance right across the state. So what I wanted to say up front is, and it's clear to many, that Tasmanian Labor, we take climate change seriously. We're practical about it, we're grounded in evidence, and we're focused on outcomes, which, unlike the government, seem to be around headlines, plans, targets, reports, a lot of talk, but like most matters in this government, not a lot of action or outcomes. This motion rightly acknowledges that Tasmania has a strong starting point when it comes to emissions, but just because you're in a good starting point doesn't guarantee a strong or a clear future. And it's certainly not a reason why you would slow down or rely on existing and historical circumstances to continue to state your case. And so I suppose this is where Tasmanian Labor feel that the government get this wrong. There's an over-reliance on the LULUCF. There's weak adaptation plans, there's weak accountability and a lack of credibility, I think, in the community around the pathways. There's a lot of questions that have been raised in the report as referenced, and I don't feel that the government take these circumstances seriously, and as demonstrated by the Minister for the Environment now, who indicates that she takes carriage for climate. They seem to want to refer to and reference things that have happened in the past as much as the things that are happening or could be happening and led by the government now. All too often there are individuals, organisations, businesses and industries in community that are leading far ahead of government, and it would be great if government could take the lead of organisations, individuals and industries in Tasmania and be clear and strong about their position. We would question whether the government accepts the importance of climate change and are truly committed to the actions that they should take. And we highlight to them those things identified in the report where it says very clearly that there are significant gaps in adaptation planning and that is impacting many. Particularly around health, tourism, our built environment, about emergency management, our local communities. It also identifies serious gaps in delivery, inconsistency in accountability and a lack of coordination across agencies and departments, despite the Minister stating that just now. Transparency and accountability were also identified as significant gaps, including the lack of integration across all considerations in government processes, in reporting and, as has the motion has identified, in ministerial accountability. I don't think anyone's saying, Minister, that the land use change and forestry sector doesn't count. I think what people say is that you can't, in many circumstances, rest on your laurels. And because we have this historic and legacy benefit from decisions made by others well before this government, we can't sort of set and forget. So our net zero status didn't happen by accident, but it also didn't happen as a result of this government. It is as a result of our forests, the extraordinary investment and in the moment great foresight with our hydro development and the choices of many before us here. But it feels like the government treats it as a bit of a trophy, something that you can point at, something that gives you satisfaction that you can say we've got net zero without really taking a responsibility that it needs to be actively protected. And if Tasmania wants to remain credible in this space, lots more needs to be done. As I've said earlier, the government is, in this area and in many areas, very good at producing plans, targets and reports, but plans don't cut emissions and targets don't protect communities and reports don't actually lead to change. And that's what Tasmania wants, and that's what this motion speaks to. If Tasmania really wants to maintain our leading climate and be a true renewable energy powerhouse, we've lost that status to South Australia. If we want to really attract clean investment and maintain good jobs, then you have to lead. When it comes to mitigation, and the Minister says, and I can't remember the numbers, but it was close to hundreds, there's all of these, cross-departmental, cross-government work going on, then I point to a simple failure of this government where it appears that it's clear that government doesn't work together and the left hand doesn't know or understand what the right hand's doing and make curious decisions. Not too far from here, you take Boyer as an example. Boyer, for so long, so publicly, have been seeking 45 megawatts of great Tasmanian renewable energy to transition from a coal-fired boiler to electrify. And they can't, for love or money, get their megawatts there. But the impact and reduction of emissions there, I was just listening to a radio interview recently, they would account that to be the equivalent of 4 to 5 times our metro bus fleet. So a simple decision where one arm of government, one of extension of government, whether a government business or a state-owned company, might make a decision that that's not something that they can do. Other parts of government could use that as an example to have a practical impact and change. Don't get me started on the differences in government around the 45 megawatts wanted by Boyer versus the 104 megawatts granted to Firmus. Where are we as a state in our decision making around the value of our precious assets, our megawatts, our renewable energy, when we don't seem to have a balanced approach to how we could best use those in Tasmania? And then you look at industry and what industry are doing without government on their own. Yes, given some of their federal responsibilities, but also because they know what will continue to make them viable and continue to allow them to deliver good jobs in Tasmania. The recent decisions that we're hearing about Grange Resources, their commitment to go underground, to electrify big parts of their business, would again see the equivalent of tens of thousands of cars off the road, the equivalent of what it would take to power, tens of thousands of homes in Tasmania. There's a lot going on in mitigation, but there's a lot being missed by this government with opportunities. And I think Tasmanians expect the government to take measured approaches to these matters. In terms of adaptation, it's often talked about as abstract, but it's not. Adaptation, stronger roads, bridges, better energy networks. It's preparing our communities for fire, for flood, for extreme weather events. It's councils having the tools that they need. This is the core business, and this is where the government can be leading. And it's where the report is really clear that the government is not taking the lead. And that's what Tasmanians want. Tasmanians want us to be serious about the science. They want us to be serious about protecting people and communities. They want us to be serious about supporting our industries to transition without leaving our workers behind. They want us to drive real reductions in risk, guide real investment and produce real outcomes for our community. And I suppose that's what Labor's position is. We see that when an independent review identifies ways to strengthen delivery, increase accountability and effectiveness and create actual outcomes, you must respond. And the motion today requires that the government respond before August in terms of how you are going to address, respond or accept the recommendations of this report. In the minute that I have left, Tasmanian Labor support the motion put forward by the member today. We accept that the lack of accountability and leadership has created a lack of trust in the community and that the government can do better. They need to start to signal a seriousness around their approach to climate change, not just rhetoric, action that actually matches all the plans that are on the shelves, accountability that actually recognises the scale and the importance of the challenges ahead. We'll continue to work constructively with the organisations in the community, those that we've connected with across the crossbench, to continue to work with individuals, with industry, with workers, with communities, and will continue to hold the government to account. Because Tasmania, we can be a climate leader. We can be proud of our net zero status if we continue to do real work, not just rely on historical positions. We can together reduce emissions, protect communities and support industry to transition. But it's going to
Honourable
require
members, time's expired.
government that works harder and creates